Welcome back, bow hunters. This is Ron with Stay Sharp. In this video we're going to look at the Sevr broadhead. Bought some of these online. Even came with some cool stickers. This is a very durable head. After watching the video that John Lusk did, I was very impressed. I know he hunts with these, and I get a number of requests from people about sharpening them. So we are going to look at sharpening the Sevr broadhead in this video. We'll do like we always do. We'll look at it under the microscope on the sharpness tester, and then talk about the protocol for sharpening it. Let's get a sharpness test score out of the box, and then talk about taking it apart and then sharpening it. So stay tuned. One of the nice things that Sevr does that other companies fail to do is they provide you with the wrench that you need to take the head apart. Now when you take these heads apart, be mindful that there are 4 things you have to keep track of. This screw, the 2 blades, and their wave washer. 1, 2, 3, and 4. That washer is very tiny. Don't lose it. They do include extra O-rings and an extra screw, but not an extra wave washer. They do provide a wrench as well, but don't lose that wave washer. That's important. When you go to put the head back together, make sure that you layer it so that these teeth offset. And even I'm getting it wrong here. There we go. I gotta flip it over. That's why. Alright, when you go to put it back together, there are these angles here and here. When you put it back together, they need to, there we go, they need to lock. That's the locking mechanism. So you'll put those 2 and the wave washer on either side. The wave washer does not go between the blades. It goes on either this side or the other side. You'll slide this all through, and of course the wave washer is going to get pushed around. You can get it to line up and then use the wrench itself, which is another good reason to have the wrench, to line everything back up and through the hole. That is the process for putting it back together. Just be mindful that you don't want to lose the wave washer. So next we're going to talk about the sharpening strategy for this head. So the factory edge on the Sevr looks pretty good. The minor nicks were really nothing, and I can tell by the feel that this is going to be a sharp blade. So let's see what out of the box sharpness looks like. $198. And that is well within the, or at least my expectation for hunt ready sharpness. Anything below 250 is certainly hunt ready. So these heads out of the box are very sharp. Out of the box sharpness is a snapshot in time. You will use them, you will dull them, practicing, taking animals, and when it comes time to sharpen them, you want to be able to get that sharp or sharper, and that's what we're going to talk about next. For the Sevr heads, the best option is our replaceable blade guide. This is the blade orientation. It's sticking out about 1/4 of an inch. That's just, you know, a close approximation. What matters is that the edge of the blade is parallel to the roller. And then what matters even more is the marker wear that you're going to get. That tells you whether you've got the blade in the jaws correctly. So we'll color it up. And then we will use, because this is a new blade, I will start with 800 grit. Don't push down hard. I'll say it in every video. The quickest way to wreck diamond plates, to wreck sandpaper, is too much downward force. You've got a lot of unsupported blade here that can bend. Don't let that flex by pushing down hard, and don't push down hard because you will strip the grit and granules from diamond plates or the sandpaper. You almost want to be as if you're trying to lift it off. Super light pressure. You do not want to push down hard. You will wreck your sandpaper. You will wreck your diamond plates quicker by pushing down hard. A thumb on this side, middle finger on this side, index finger here. Your only control is to keep it off the edge of the plate. You don't want to drive off the edge of the plate. You're steering it. You're not pushing down hard. So we have some pretty good wear. Let's flip it over. Again, that edge that's unsupported, that long hangover portion. There we go. So I'd say we're in the guide correctly. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sharpen at 800 grit. I'm going to get a burr on one side that I'll detect with a piece of paper, and I'll explain that in a bit. Then I'm going to flip it over, get a burr on the other side. When I get that second burr, I'm going to come back and we're going to talk about burr and burr breaking next. Now that I've sharpened this side and got a burr, I've sharpened this side with 800 grit. We're going to check to see if we've got a burr. See how the paper catches? That is our sign that we have reached the other side of the blade. The paper catches. So I got a burr on this side. Now I've got a burr on this side. 2 burrs. 800 grit tells me I'm done. I'm just going to give a couple of break off strokes. Make sure all the burr is sufficiently gone at 800 grit. Just flip and flop a couple of times. And then I'm going to switch to 1200. But before I switch, I want to get all that 800 grit residue, any diamond granules, or if you're using sandpaper, any of those granules off of the guide. I don't want to transfer any of the 800 grit to 1200 grit. Now I'm going to repeat the process. I'm going to sharpen this side, get a burr. When I get that done, I'm going to flip it over, get a second burr, and we will come back and check for a 1200 grit burr. Okay, we've got a burr on one side at 1200. Now we're going to check for the burr on the second side at 1200. The paper catches, flexes, pops. That's the indication that we have reached a burr throughout. Now that I've got 2 burrs, like I did last time, I'll do a couple of flipping strokes to make sure that I've broken the burr off at 1200 grit. And before we go to 2500 grit, again, clean off, especially the rollers, clean off the guide and get rid of any 1200 grit debris that you do not want to carry over to 2500 grit. We'll do the same thing. get a burr on this side, flip it over, get a second burr, and come back and talk about that. Now that we've gotten a burr on this side, we've flipped it over, we've sharpened this side. Now a 2500 grit burr is a pretty small burr. You would be hard pressed to feel this with your fingerprint, which is what makes the paper so valuable, to know if you've achieved your goal. Without getting a burr, you're not getting it sharp. Since this is the second burr, I will now flip it over. Then I will flip it again. We're going to keep bending that final burr at 2500 grit. Back and forth. Like a small piece of wire, you can bend it only so many times back and forth before it snaps. And when that burr does break off at 2500 grit from this alternating strokes, the edge where the burr broke off will be equivalent in jaggedness to the 2500 grit. This is cheap insurance to make sure that you don't go to the next phase, which is buffing compound, with any burr left behind. Any remnant of any burr left will show up under the microscope, and it will show up on the sharpness tester, which is why I use those things, because you can't cheat sharp on a video like this. If you see it under the microscope and in the sharpness tester, if there's any burr there, you'll see it. Alright, now we have a very, we can see the reflection here, a very smooth looking edge, and I can tell you right now, the way this drags on my fingerprint, that this is incredibly sharp. The next step we will do will be buffing. Again, we want to clean off the guide before we go on to the buffing compound phase, and we will talk about that next. The final step in sharpening is the buffing compound step. Buffing compound is just a wax crayon with an abrasive suspended in it, and our strop in this case is going to be cardboard. You do not need a leather strop. My strop is made from instant mashed potato box, instant rice box, cornflakes box, any sort of an unprinted cardboard box on the inside of the box, so your strop is free. The key to stropping is a backward only stroke, lift, and you keep doing that. Now you won't feel a burr here, the burr is too small, so do a few on this side, flip it over. Same thing, backward stroke, lift. Flip it over. And you can do this to your heart's content. You can't overdo this step. You're not removing that much material. Yes, it's going to turn black, that's the metal coming off, but a very small amount. You aren't going to change the weight really at all. Now what you'll notice as you strop, and you'll check this often, is that you're going to get some buildup of buffing compound on the blade. You'll need to clean that off. If you don't, that's going to be the only part that hits the buffing compound. So periodically check that. You can use a thumbnail to get it off. When it's all off, oh, got a little bit there yet. When it's all off, go back to stropping. Nice light strokes. Don't put a bend or a flex in the blade. Just like when you're using it on diamonds or sandpaper, light is the key. We have some buildup again. Nope. Nope. Now, when you get to the final strokes, 1, 1. Just keep flipping it. Again, you're making a very micro burr, incredibly small. You want to break that burr off so it doesn't show up under the microscope and the sharpness tester, but for you, so that you have the ultimate maximum of sharpness without a burr. So flip and flop and do this repeatedly. Again, cheap insurance to get rid of the burr. Next, we're going to look at it under the microscope and see what our efforts look like. The microscope tells no lies. We've got a smooth, burr-free, nick-free edge. 800, 1200, 2500 grit, and then buffing compound. But let's see how we did on the score. .94. That cut through like a knife through butter. That is sharp. Now, that's far sharper than the razor blades that I've tested. I'll show you how that looks right now. So with a score like that, you would think, boy, you've removed a lot of material to accomplish that. Let's put that to the test. I'll take the blade out. Here's the blade that I just sharpened. Here is the blade from the head that I never touched. 14. And the blade that I sharpened. 14. So sharpening a blade doesn't remove that much material. Even if you've hit a rock and have a big ding or some sort of a nick in it, you're not taking out that much material. And Sevr makes a good head with good steel, and they're certainly worth resharpening. Despite how good the edge looks under a microscope and in the sharpness tester, I always get the question about shaving, so let's do that. Here you go, no effort, shaves with ease. And that's how you do it with a Stay Sharp Replaceable Blade Guide. Thanks for watching.